Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at July with a video. Well, as the title of the video would suggest, it is an unboxing of Order of the Spellcaster Structure Deck. Boss! I have just purchased this deck today, on a Saturday, and I shall upload this video Saturday night. So let us get started, shall we? Discard of the box. First things first. Got a very nice beginner's rule book. Tells you all you need to know to start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, I'm a long time player myself, so I don't really need to know anything. But still, the structure decks keep up with the latest rules, so it's a good idea to read them. Right, I remember in the old days. This is interesting, the card list. This is a, on the back of the duel mat, I'm going to show you it first. This is a, basically how to play this deck kind of layout. So just to give you a full view, it contains basic strategies and card combinations to play with this deck, though I'm going to be dismantling it to build my own. So I'm actually going to be dismantling part of this deck to put it into my other Dark Magician deck. But yeah, and I remember back in the day, back when Yu-Gi-Oh was, you could only draw one card. Basically, when Pot of Greed was the only way you could draw an extra card. I remember back in the day, they used to have two different things, and the decks used to come with a rule book, a duel mat, a little packet on how to play the deck, and then you had these little advice cards, like Union Monsters, and like little advice cards. I still have a few of those old advice cards, but in any case, yeah. So that's basically it. Now I'll show you the front. You get the dual mats. It's really fucking badass. Okay, it is badass. Just look at this shit. Pretty standard if you're new to Yu-Gi-Oh. The new rule sets will have... Yu-Gi-Oh has definitely become more complicated over the years, so I won't do that. I might do a video going through the different duel mats through Yu-Gi-Oh history. Because I have all the duel mats needed to do that kind of video. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Decky. Now I will be doing this review. I will be reading each name of the card and its ability. And I have very much a certainty that this is going to be badass. Alright, fantasy, mild blood, partial nudity in a Yu-Gi-Oh game? I mean, look at this shit. Don't know if you can see that or not, but that says fantasy violence, mild blood, and partial nudity in a Yu-Gi-Oh game. That's fucked up. There's my OG king of the game's favorite duelist, Yami Yugi, and there's the new guy. You got this Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links thing. You say Yodo from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and then you got Yami Yugi. You say Hyodo is actually very good, I want to say, duelist. But I'm not, I'm actually going to separate these cards into the different components. So like spell cards, monster cards, stuff like that. just so like we can have a easier time uh, with them. Alright, I'm going to start with the trap cards because there's not very many of them. Then I will get to the spell cards, and then I will get to everyone's favorite, the monster cards. Keeping in mind this is a magician deck, so the trap cards will be involved with spellcasters. First, we have an OG classic, Magic Circle. And I'm gonna readjust my light source so you can see the cards better. We have the OG classic, Magic Circle. This was in the original Yu-Gi-Oh card game. When a spellcaster monster declares an attack, each player special summons one spellcaster monster with 2,000 or less attack from their deck in attack position. Really useful if you have a dark magician and you need to get a dark magician girl out on the field. So there's that. And then we have a Gaga Shield. That's a new one for me. Target one spellcaster monster you control. Equip this card to that target. Twice per turn, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Very good. Extra Buck. Definitely a Pot of Greed art type. Each time a card or cards is added to your extra deck, place one spell counter on this card, max 3. You can send this card with 3 spell counters to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. Search ability. Very good. Pitch Black Power Stone. Oh, anyone who plays the spellcaster archetype throughout the centuries of, well, it feels like centuries, throughout the decades of Yu-Gi-Oh! Knows what Pitch Black Stone is, but I'm going to read it anyways. Activate this card by placing 3 spell counters on it once per turn. During your turn, you can target one other face-up card on the field that you control, that you can place a spell counter on. Remove one spell counter from this card, and if you do, place one spell counter on that target. When the last spell counter is removed from this card, destroy it. Magician decks are all about spell counters. The more you have, the better off you are. And Pitch Black Stone in a Magician's deck with spell counter abilities, yeah, use it, dude. Then we have Mythical Bestia Morpha. Definitely a new one for me. Each time an opponent's monster effect is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that effect resolves, you can send this card with 6 or more spell counters to the graveyard. Add one spell counter from your deck to your Add one spell card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Mythical Bestiamorpha once per turn. So yeah, good trap cards. Definitely going to want to think about adding these to my Dark Magician deck. Maxing it out and potential just screw off ability. And I said I was going to do the spell cards next. So we have Spell Power Mastery. Very cool looking card, foil. Add one Eddie Mayon card from your deck to your hand. Then you can count the number of Spell Power Mastery and Spell Power Grasp you control and or have in your graveyard, and place that many spell counters among cards you control that you can place a spell counter on. You can only activate one Spell Power Mastery once per turn. So I'm assuming you either have to have those other 2 spell cards on the field or in your graveyard to activate this. Good little case of emergency save there. Let's see here. Dwemer, Dwemer Path. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Dwemer Path. Uh, target one spellcaster effect monster in your graveyard. Add it to your hand. You can only use this card once per turn. Again, especially good deck with most spellcasters being, well, you guessed it, effect monsters. Eddie Myon's Lab. This card becomes magic. This card's name becomes Magical Citadel of Eminion while in the spell and trap card zone. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves once per turn after damage calculation, if your spellcaster monster is destroyed by battle, you can remove 6 spell counters from your field. Special summon one level 7 or higher spellcaster monster from your hand or deck. You can only activate one Eddie Myon's Lab per turn. So if you have like 2 of these in your deck, you can only play once per turn. This is the spell card I've been wanting to get my hands on for a while, especially with my Dark Magician deck being what it is. Magical Citadel of Eddie Myon. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, if a card with a spell counter is destroyed, place its spell counters on this card. Once per turn, if you would activate a card effect by removing spell counters from a card you control, you can remove that many spell counters from this card instead. If this card would be destroyed, you can remove one spell counter from this card instead. Yeah. Basically, this card in a Magician deck is a Holy Grail card. It is a necessary card in any Magician deck, and you will not have a complete Magician's deck unless you have a Magical Citadel of Emimion in it. Then we have a Spell Power Grasp. Looks like we have 2 Spell Power Grasps in this deck. In that case, I don't have to read both of their effects since it's the same thing. Spell Power Grasp. Target one face-up card on the field that you can place a spell counter on. Place one spell counter on that target, then you can add one Spell Power Grasp from your deck to your hand. You can only activate one Spell Power Grasp per turn. Other one. Arcane Barrier. So there's that. Each time a face-up spellcaster monster on the field is destroyed, place one spell counter on this card, max 4. You can send this card and one face-up spellcaster you control to the graveyard. Draw one card for each spell counter that was on this card. So basically, you send 2 cards to the graveyard, you get to pick up 4. That's a 2-card plus. Spellbook of Secrets. Yeah, I can tell that I'm going to have to completely rethink my whole Magician's deck after buying this structure deck. Add one Spellbook card from your deck to your hand, except Spellbook of Secrets. You can only activate one Spellbook of Secrets per turn. I'm not really sure I'm going to add this card to my deck. Spellbook of Power. Forgot to show you the card. Badass, right? Card designs just get better with age. Target one spellcaster monster you control this turn. It gains 1,000 attack points. Very good. And if it does, each time it destroys an opponent's monster by battle this turn, you can add one spellbook from your deck to your hand. You can only activate one Spellbook of Power per turn. This is in the running to be added to my deck. Spellbook of Wisdom. Now that I've gone through these spellbooks, I'm starting to think that that Spellbook of Secrets is designed for you to give the searching ability to get these two cards out. And Spellbook of Wisdom, target one spellcaster monster on the field and activate one of these effects. That face-up monster is unaffected by other spell effects this turn. First effect. Second effect. That face-up monster is unaffected by trap effects this turn. And this is a quick play spell card, so you got your badass like Dark Magician out in the field, and then bam, Mirror Force activates. What, bitch? Ooh, Magical Blast. This is an OG card that's been reprinted. Inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each spellcaster monster you control. During your draw phase, if this card is in your graveyard before you draw, you can give up your normal draw phase this turn, and if you do, add this card to your hand. So, yeah, it has a good effect, but it doesn't justify it. Giving up your draw phase to add that card to your hand, unless your opponent has like 200 life points left, and he has nothing to block that card's effect, then yeah, bring it back, use it, boom. For all the OG fans out there, do I even really need to read this card's effect? But I'm going to do it anyways. Itch my eye. If you control a spellcaster monster, target one monster you control, tribute that target, then special summon one spellcaster monster from your hand. Then you can destroy one monster on the field. Magical Dimensions, people. Terraforming. In its simplest effect, add one field spell from your deck to your hand. That's literally all it does. Left Arm Offering. This was used in the classic duel of Yugi. I think it was either Yugi versus Merrick or Joey versus Merrick. But still. If you have two or more other cards in your hand, banish your entire hand. Add one spell card from your deck to your hand. You cannot set spell or traps during the turn you activate this card. Now, unless you're bringing back something that is like insta-win crunching, like I can understand if using this card if you're going to bring back a card like Raigeki, and you only have like two cards in your hand. Because it says two or more cards and banish your entire hand. And if you have only two cards in your hand and you can't do anything with them, sure, use Left Arm Offering, bring back the Raigeki your opponent's ass, and hope you can draw something that will win. Of course, I set all the cards that were necessary. Next, we have Pot of Desires. Banish 10 cards from the top of your deck face down. Draw 2 cards. You can only activate one Pot of Desires per turn. Why would I want to banish these cards? I'm betting there are cards. I'm betting there are monster effects that have to do with banished cards, like bringing them back. But I haven't got to them yet. That was spell cards. Next, we'll get to the only card in the extra deck. This Link monster, Daybreaker, the Shining Magical Warrior. Link materials are 2 spellcaster type monsters. If this card is Link summoned, place 1 spell counter on it. It gains 300 attack for each spell counter on it. You can only activate each of the following effects of Daybreaker, the Shining Magical Warrior, once per turn. If a spellcaster monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, place 1 spell counter on this card. You can remove 2 spell counters from this card, then target 1 card on the field and destroy it. Badass ability. I have to say. Badass ability. Next, we get to the real meat of this deck. All these monster cards. And I'm going to be... I guess I should separate the pendulum cards from the... rest of them, because the pendulum cards have 2 abilities while the rest of these cards only have 1. So, let's start with the coolest one by far. Uh, Eddie the Mighty Master of Magic. Now, when I read these, I'm going to be including the scales. Link's Pendulum Scale 8 and its Pendulum ability, you can remove 6 spell counters from your field, special summon this card from the Pendulum Zone, then count the number of cards you control that can have a spell counter. Destroy up to that many cards on the field, and if you do, place spell counters on this card equal to the number of cards destroyed. You can only use this effect of Eddie the Mighty Master of Magic, once per turn. Definitely getting added to my Magician deck. And then we have once per turn. Then we have his normal Pendulum ability. His normal monster ability. Once per turn, when a spell or trap card effect is activated, this is a quick effect. You can return one card you control with a spell counter to the hand, and if you do, negate the activation, and if you do that, destroy it. Then you can place the same number of spell counters on this card that the return card had. While this card has a spell counter, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. Damn. Card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. When this card with a spell counter is destroyed by battle, you can add one normal spell from your deck to your hand. Very nice ability. Next we have Reflection of Eddie Link Scale, Pendulum Scale 2. Each Pendulum ability. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card. Special summon both this card from your Pendulum Zone and one monster from your hand that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do, place one spell counter on each. Normal ability. You can only special summon Reflections of Eddie once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can target one card your opponent controls and one card you control with a spell counter, except this card, and return that opponent's card and your card to the hand. Then place the same number of spell counters on this card that your return card had. When this card with a spell counter is destroyed by battle, you can add one Eddie from your deck to your hand. Very good ability. Magister of Eddie Pendulum Scale 8. Pendulum ability. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card. Special summon both this card from your Pendulum Zone and one face-up monster from your extra deck that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do, place one spell counter on each. Normal ability. You can only special summon Magisters of Eddie once per turn. When this card declares an attack, you can place one spell counter on it. Once per opponent's turn, quick effect. You can remove 3 spell counters from your field. Special summon one monster from your deck that you can place a spell counter on. If this card is in the monster zone, if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone, then place the same number of spell counters on it that it had as a monster. Very nice. Then we have Servant of Eddie Pendulum Scale 2. Pendulum ability. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card. Special summon both this card from your Pendulum Zone and 1 monster from your deck with 1000 or more attack that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do, place 1 spell counter on each. You can only special summon Servant of Endymion once per turn. This card with a spell counter can attack directly. Once per opponent's turn, quick effect. You can discard 1 card, place 1 spell counter on each card you control that you can place a spell counter on. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone, then place the same number of spell counters on it that it had as a monster. Very nice. Then we have Mythical Beast Medusa. If you have no cards in your other Pendulum Zones, you can target 1 monster in your graveyard that you can place a spell counter on, destroy this card, and if you do, special summon that monster. And if you do that, place 1 spell counter on it. You can only use this effect of Mythical Beast Medusa once per turn. Each normal ability. Pendulum Scale 4, by the way. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card when that spell resolves. Once per turn during the battle phase, quick effect, you can remove 2 spell counters from your field, then target 1 face-up monster on the field. Its attack and defense become half its current attack and defense until the end of this turn. Then we have a Magical Abductor. Link Scale 3. Pendulum Scale 3. Pendulum ability. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card when that spell resolves. Once per turn, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card, add 1 pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. Normal ability. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, gains 100 attack for each spell counter on it. Once per turn, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card and add 1 level 1 spellcaster from your deck to your hand. Not bad. Those are pendulum monsters. Now we get to the normal monsters. Endymion, the Master Magician. You can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard by removing 6 spell counters from a magical citadel of Endymion you control. If summoned this way, target 1 spell card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. Once per turn, you can discard one spell, then target 1 card on the field and destroy that target. Not bad. Crusader of Endymion. Spellcaster and a gimme monster. Ooh. Those are monsters that when they're summoned, they are normal monsters, but you can choose to summon them as an effect monster, as I come to take it. This card is treated as a normal monster or face up on the field or in the graveyard. While this card is a normal monster on the field, you can normal summon it to have it become an effect monster with this effect. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up card on the field that you can place a spell counter on. Place 1 spell counter on it, and if you do, this card gains 600 attack until the end of the turn. Not bad. Defender the Magical Knight. If this card is normal summon, place 1 spell counter on it, max 1. Once per turn, if a spellcaster monster on the field would be destroyed, you can remove 1 spell counter from your field for each of those monsters instead. Mythical Beast Cerberus. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card when that spell resolves. Gains 500 attack for each spell counter on it. At the end of the battle phase, if this card battled, remove all spell counters on it. So Mythical Beast Cerberus would be good for a one turn finisher, or if you want to, you could use it as like a deterrent to keep that other guy from attacking your life points. Considering the fact that if you put like 2 spell counters on it, this thing jumps to 2400. You put 4 spell counters on it, boom, 3400. You put 6 spell counters on it, boom, 4400. Magical something. Yeah, that's literally its name. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, this card's level is increased by the number of spell counters on it. You can remove 3 spell counters from this card, then target 1 quick play spell in your graveyard that set that card to your spell and trap card zone. You can only use this effect of magical something once per turn. Not bad. I already have a magical exemplar in my other deck, but it's very good. Each time a spell card is activated, place 2 spell counters on this card. When that spell resolves, once per turn, you can remove any number of spell counters from this card. Special summon 1 spellcaster monster from your hand or graveyard, whose level is equal to the number of spell counters you removed. Disenchanter. Have no clue who this chick is. But in any case, effect, once per turn you can target 1 face-up spell card on the field, remove 1 spell counter from anywhere on the field, and if you do, return that target to the hand. Not bad. Then we have Apprentice Magician. If this card is summoned, target 1 face-up card on the field that you can place a spell counter on. Place 1 spell counter on that target. If this card is destroyed by battle, you can special summon 1 level 2 or lower spellcaster monster from your deck in face-down defense position. Not bad. Do I really have to read this ability either? It's Dark Magician of Chaos, okay? We all know what this thing does. If you're a magician player. But I'll read it anyways. During the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or special summoned this turn, you can target 1 spell card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Dark Magician of Chaos once per turn. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle after damage calculation, banish that opponent's monster. If this face-up card would leave the field, banish it instead. Oh, they added that. I have the old Dark Magician of Chaos that didn't have that last little bit. I might pull it out later on and like do a little 5-second mini video on it. But my Dark Magician of Chaos didn't have that little side ability. Fairy Tale Luna. Little fox jelly. Spellcaster. When this card is normal summon, you can add 1 spellcaster monster with 1850 attack from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, quick effect. You can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Your opponent can send 1 card with that monster's name. Wait, let me read. You can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Your opponent can send 1 card with that monster's name from their deck or extra deck to the graveyard to negate this effect. Otherwise, return both this card and that monster to the hand. The hell? This card is way too confusing to use. So I won't even bother putting that in my deck. Next we have a Summoner Monk. While this card is face up on the field, it cannot be tributed. If this card is normal summoned or flipped summoned, change this card to defense position. Once per turn, you can discard one spell, special summon one level 4 or lower, one level 4 monster from your deck. But that monster cannot attack this turn. Not bad. Summon a monk, and then you get to summon another monster. Not bad. Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. I have a funny feeling this guy goes along with those spellbook cards. If this card is normal summoned or flip summoned, or if this card is normal summoned or flip face up, add one spell book spell card from your deck to your hand. Told you. Then we have Magical Undertaker. Flip effect. Ooh, mysterious. You can target one level 4 or lower spellcaster monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. Not bad. Please tell me I don't have to read this card's effect. Magician of Faith. This was literally in the first ever edition version of Yu-Gi-Oh! This card. But flip effect. Target one spell card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. Yeah, like this card wouldn't bring back a Raigeki or a Monster Reborn. That's another thing you could use Left Arm Offering for. If you have like your strongest monsters in the graveyard and you need it to win, Left Arm Offering, Monster Reborn, bring that thing back. Poof, obliterate. Then we have a Droll and Luckbird. If a card or cards is added from the main deck to your opponent's hand, except during the draw phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. For the rest of this turn, cards cannot be added from either player's main deck to their hand. 0 attack, 0 defense, but it stops your opponent from searching that one turn, so it buys you extra turns. So definitely in the running to be added into the main deck. But in any case, I realize this video has been absurdly long. And sorry for that. But until next time, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe when using your weapons, and I'm out. Peace. And play Yu-Gi-Oh! Just get into Yu-Gi-Oh! It's fun. Okay? Bye.